You can feel it building. The silence between you isn't awkward. It's charged. She's close enough to touch. But inside, your mind is racing. What if I ruin this? What if she pulls away? So you either say nothing, or you blurt something clumsy that shifts the energy instantly, and just like that, attraction evaporates. Here's the truth. Asking for sex isn't about courage, it's about control. Women don't reject desire, they reject instability. If your request feels like pressure, her body shuts down. If it feels calm, clear, and respectful, she relaxes into it. The difference isn't the sentence, it's the psychology behind it. In this video, I'll show you how to make that first move in a way that protects the connection instead of sabotaging it. Before we talk about hygiene, timing, or even the words you'll use, we need to address something far more important, the psychological frame you bring into that moment. Asking for sex is not a technique. It's not a line. It's not a clever transition. It is a power dynamic. Women read your emotional state long before they process your sentence. Long before you say, "I want you," she has already measured your posture, your tone, your pace, your eye contact. Research in social psychology, including work by Carney, Cuddy, and Yap in 2010 on nonverbal expressions of power, suggests that people form impressions of confidence and dominance within seconds based purely on body language. Even when the findings were debated, one truth remained consistent. Perception shifts before words ever do. That means this is not about what you say. It's about who you are being when you say it. If you ask because you need reassurance, she will feel that pressure. If you ask because you're afraid she might leave, she will feel that instability. If you ask because you're trying to secure validation, she will feel cornered. But when you ask from grounded desire, calm, steady, unhurried, the dynamic changes. Now you are not seeking approval. You are expressing intention. Imagine two men saying the exact same sentence. "I'd like to take this further." One says it with tight shoulders, nervous laughter, eyes searching for permission. The other says it slowly, grounded, holding eye contact, prepared for either answer. Same words, different outcome. Here is the truth most men don't want to hear. She doesn't fear sex. She fears feeling cornered. The moment she senses that your desire comes with expectation or entitlement, her nervous system shifts into defense. Attraction cannot survive in a defensive environment. So before you think about asking her anything, regulate yourself. Slow your breathing, relax your body, accept internally that she may say no, and that you will remain steady either way. Because the first thing you must control is you. Now that your internal frame is steady, we move to something most men underestimate: your physical readiness. This is not about vanity. This is about signaling. Hygiene is not just cleanliness. It communicates discipline. It communicates self-awareness. It communicates whether you respect your own body, and by extension, whether you are capable of respecting hers. Take a shower. Every day. Not quickly. Intentionally. Pay attention to your armpits, your groin, your feet. Dry properly. Wear clean socks. Trim your nails. Brush and floss. Groom facial hair. Control body odor. Keep your skin moisturized. These are not optional details. They are baseline standards. And no, this is not about impressing her with cologne. It's about removing subconscious barriers. Psychologists refer to something called the primacy effect, the tendency for first impressions to disproportionately influence later judgments. Nalini Ambady and Robert Rosenthal's 1992 research on thin slicing demonstrated that people form surprisingly accurate evaluations of others within seconds based on minimal information. Seconds. That means before she consciously decides whether she wants to be intimate with you, her brain has already scanned for cues. Are you clean? Are you put together? Do you look like a man who manages himself? If she subconsciously registers neglect, dirty nails, bad breath, unkempt hair, her nervous system shifts into caution. And once caution is activated, desire struggles to breathe. You want her to feel safe taking her clothes off with you. Start by showing you respect your own body. Because here's the deeper layer most men miss. Poor hygiene doesn't just signal messiness. It signals lack of discipline. And lack of discipline creates doubt. Doubt reduces attraction. On the other hand, when you are clean, composed, and well-groomed, you remove friction. You create neutrality. And neutrality allows attraction to move forward naturally. This is not about becoming hyper-groomed or obsessively polished. It's about eliminating unnecessary resistance. Think of it this way. Intimacy already requires vulnerability. If she has to override discomfort on top of vulnerability, you've made her job harder, and attraction rarely survives unnecessary effort. Your physical presentation is not the seduction, it's the foundation. It says, without words, I handle myself. I pay attention. I am not careless. And when a woman feels that you are not careless with yourself, she is far more likely to trust that you won't be careless with her. Body readiness isn't superficial. It is biological groundwork for attraction. Now we move to the moment most men overcomplicate. The words. You can be clean, you can be grounded, but if your language is vague, evasive, or manipulative, you undo everything. Clear and respectful language is not just polite, it is powerful. When a man says, "So, do you want to come chill?" what he's really saying is, "I don't want to take responsibility for what I'm suggesting." Vagueness is often disguised fear. It gives you an escape route, but it also signals uncertainty. And uncertainty weakens attraction. Direct communication, on the other hand, signals emotional maturity. It tells her you are not hiding behind ambiguity. You are not pretending this is something else. You are owning your desire without forcing it on her. Compare this. "Wanna hang out at my place?" versus, "I'm attracted to you. I'd like to take this further if you feel the same." The second statement carries intention. It carries accountability. And most importantly, it leaves space for her choice. Research from the Gottman Institute on Relationship Dynamics consistently shows that couples who practice clear, direct communication report higher levels of satisfaction and stability. While their work focuses on long-term relationships, the principle applies here. Clarity reduces anxiety. Ambiguity creates it. When you are unclear, she must decode you. And when she has to decode you, she shifts into analysis mode instead of desire mode. There's another mistake men make. Sudden sexual escalation with no emotional buildup. One minute you're laughing about work, the next you drop an explicit proposition. That jump feels disjointed, and disjointed energy feels unsafe. Sexual tension should be layered gradually. Eye contact deepens. Conversation becomes slightly more personal. Physical proximity closes naturally. When the moment arrives, it should feel like a continuation, not a shock. Here's the line you need to remember. Clarity is masculine. Vagueness is fear. When you speak clearly, you communicate strength. When you hint, dodge, or disguise your intent, you communicate insecurity. But clarity does not mean aggression. It means calm ownership. You are not demanding. You are not persuading. You are expressing. And expression, when delivered from stability, is attractive. Because a woman would rather respond to honest desire than try to interpret hidden motives. Now we go deeper. Because even if you are grounded, clean, and clear, none of it matters if she does not feel emotionally safe. The first time sex is discussed between two people, something subtle happens. Vulnerability enters the room. And vulnerability is not casual for women. It is neurological. Attachment theory, originally developed by John Bowlby and later expanded by Hazan and Shaver in 1987, shows that adults carry attachment patterns into romantic dynamics. Some lean anxious, some avoidant, some secure. That means when intimacy is on the table, her nervous system may respond based on past experiences, not just present chemistry. If she has been pressured before, she may scan for red flags. If she has been rejected before, she may hesitate before exposing herself emotionally. If she has avoidant tendencies, she may withdraw when things feel intense. This is why empathy is not weakness. It is strategic awareness. Empathy means you are paying attention, not just to her words, but to her subtle shifts. Does her body tense? Does her voice soften? Does she break eye contact when the topic becomes intimate? And here is something most men miss. Sometimes hesitation is not rejection. It is processing. Research by Muiz and colleagues in 2016 on emotional intimacy and sexual desire found that perceived emotional safety significantly predicts sexual satisfaction and willingness. In other words, when a woman feels emotionally understood and not judged, desire increases naturally. If she feels evaluated or rushed, desire decreases. This is why you cannot bulldoze through silence. You cannot override subtle discomfort because you are almost there. If she doesn't feel safe, her body will shut down before her mind does. Safety is not just about physical protection. It is about psychological space. The space to choose. The space to respond honestly. The space to not feel managed. Empathy means you are aware that for her, this moment carries weight. Even if she appears confident. Even if she dresses boldly. Even if she jokes about sex. Never confuse boldness with immunity. The man who wins in this moment is not the most aggressive. It is the one who can read the room and adjust without ego. When she senses that you care about how she feels, not just what you want, resistance lowers. Walls soften. Trust increases. And trust is the bridge between attraction and intimacy. Now we arrive at the line that separates a grounded man from a reckless one. Consent. Not performative consent. Not rushed, awkward, checkbox consent. Real consent. The original structure is simple. Ask directly, confirm clearly, and we keep that. But understand something deeper. Consent is not just legal protection. It is emotional positioning. When you ask her, "Do you want this?" and then pause, truly pause, you are doing something powerful. You are giving her space to choose. And choice is what creates desire. Enthusiastic consent means she is not just agreeing. She is engaged, present, certain. If she says yes softly, but her body hesitates, that's information. If she avoids eye contact or delays answering, that's information. You do not override hesitation, because the moment you ignore hesitation, you lose respect. Weak men fear the word no. They rush through the question. They soften their tone to avoid rejection. Or worse, they keep pushing until her resistance feels inconvenient enough to surrender. Strong men can tolerate silence. They can tolerate uncertainty. They can tolerate rejection. And that tolerance is attractive. When you ask the first time, "Do you want me sexually?" and she says yes, you confirm again. Not because you doubt her, but because you are anchoring certainty. Are you sure? Is not insecurity when it's calm. It's leadership. You are communicating, "I want this, but I only want it if you truly want it too." This dynamic changes everything, because when she feels free to say no and sees that you remain composed, her nervous system relaxes. The pressure dissolves, and paradoxically, desire often increases in the absence of pressure. Consent done correctly does not reduce attraction. It deepens it. You are not persuading. You are not negotiating. You are inviting. And if she says no, that is not humiliation. That is information. A man defined by validation will collapse at that moment. A man defined by stability will nod, smile, and remain centered. And in that moment, she sees something important. You are not controlled by outcome. That is power. Now that you've handled yourself, your mindset, your presence, your language, your respect for consent, we shift to her. Because this is not a monologue, it's a dynamic. And if you cannot read her accurately, you will either move too fast or miss the moment entirely. Start with body language. When attraction is mutual, her body often tells you before her words do. Does she lean in when you speak? Does she maintain eye contact a second longer than necessary? Does she mirror your posture unconsciously? Subtle mirroring is a well-documented social bonding behavior. When two people feel connected, their physical rhythms start to align. But don't project what you want to see. Leaning back, crossing arms tightly, minimal eye contact, turning her torso away. These are not random. They are distance signals. And distance signals mean slow down. Next, social media. Not to judge her, not to shame her, but to observe patterns. What does she signal publicly? Is she highly provocative online but reserved in person? Is she private? Is she expressive? Social media is curated, yes, but it still reveals how she positions herself socially. That helps you calibrate your approach. Then, conversation tone. When you lightly introduce flirtation, not explicit but suggestive, does she expand the energy or redirect it? If you say something mildly intimate and she smiles, leans closer, and continues the thread, that's openness. If she changes the subject or becomes visibly stiff, that's resistance. And resistance is information. Finally, sexual tension. Real tension feels mutual. It feels charged but unforced. There is an unspoken awareness in the space. Silence doesn't feel awkward, it feels heavy. But here's the danger. Projection. Sometimes a man feels intense desire and mistakes that intensity for reciprocity. Just because you feel it doesn't mean she does. If you have to convince her, the tension isn't mutual. And one more critical boundary: intoxication. If she is drunk, heavily buzzed, or cognitively impaired, the answer is automatically no. Not maybe, not she seems into it. No. Clarity must exist on both sides. Reading her is not about decoding hidden puzzles. It's about observing congruence. Do her words, tone, and body align? When they do, you move forward. When they don't, you pause. The most attractive men are not aggressive. They are calibrated. They don't chase signals. They respond to them. And when you respond instead of forcing momentum, the dynamic stays intact. Now let's talk about something men often ignore because desire feels urgent: the environment. You might feel the chemistry. You might feel the tension building. But if the setting is wrong, the moment collapses. Location matters. Back seats, public spaces, risky, exposed environments. These may sound thrilling in fantasy, but in reality, they activate something very different in a woman's nervous system: threat perception. Desire does not grow in threat. When the brain detects potential danger, even subtle social risk, cortisol rises. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and elevated stress directly suppresses sexual arousal. You cannot expect her body to open while her nervous system is bracing. Privacy creates safety. Safety creates relaxation. Relaxation allows desire to surface. This doesn't mean you need candles and dramatic music. It means you need a space where interruption, embarrassment, or legal consequences are not looming in the background. Then there's timing. Never escalate when she is visibly stressed, upset, distracted, or emotionally overloaded. If she just argued with someone, if she's anxious about work, if she seems preoccupied, her emotional bandwidth matters. Desire requires presence. Trying to initiate intimacy when her mind is elsewhere doesn't make you bold. It makes you miscalibrated. And here is the simple truth. Desire needs privacy. Pressure kills it. If the timing feels forced, wait. If the environment feels unstable, adjust. A man who can delay gratification without frustration communicates control. And control, not urgency, is what keeps attraction intact. Now we arrive at the final layer, delivery. You've managed your mindset. You've prepared yourself physically. You've spoken clearly. You've read her signals. You've chosen the right environment. Now it comes down to how you carry the moment. Don't rush. Rushing communicates anxiety. Anxiety communicates scarcity. And scarcity weakens attraction. Slow movements, calm tone, unhurried presence. Let the energy build instead of trying to force it to peak. And remember, the first experience matters, not because it has to be perfect, but because it sets the emotional imprint. If she feels respected, desired, and safe, she associates you with positive vulnerability. If she feels pressured or rushed, she associates you with caution. Too many men make the mistake of making intimacy about their urgency. It is not about finishing. It is about leading the experience. Now let's address the moment men fear most. She says no. If she hesitates. If she declines. If she says she's not ready. This is where your value is either reinforced or destroyed. Anger? You lose. Sulking? You lose. Trying to negotiate? You lose. Calm acceptance? You rise. Rejection doesn't lower your value. Your reaction does. When you respond with steadiness, I understand, and genuinely mean it, something powerful happens. She feels respected. The pressure evaporates, and the dynamic remains intact. You can suggest alternatives that maintain intimacy without crossing her boundary. A massage, holding her close, simply staying present. Not as manipulation, but as connection. Because sex is not the ultimate goal. The dynamic is. And when you protect the dynamic, intimacy often follows naturally. Let's bring this back to center. Asking for sex for the first time is not about boldness. It's not about pressure. And it's definitely not about rehearsed lines. It comes down to 4 pillars. You, your internal stability, your discipline, your emotional control. Her signals, her safety, her boundaries, her nervous system. The environment, privacy, timing, context, and delivery. The calm, grounded way you handle both yes and no. Most men obsess over the sentence. They think there's a magic phrase that unlocks intimacy. There isn't. Women don't respond to the request. They respond to how you show up in the moment of request. If you are steady, clean, direct, empathetic, respectful of consent, aware of context, and emotionally unshaken by outcome, you don't just increase your chances of sex, you increase your value. And here's the truth that separates boys from men. The right woman won't need to be convinced. She'll need to feel safe, seen, and led. You don't need manipulation. You don't need pressure. You don't need to override her hesitation. You need composure. If you're serious about understanding women, instead of guessing, subscribe. Stay here. This is where we replace confusion with clarity and neediness with control. And I want to hear from you. What insight hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Share this with a man who needs to hear it. You don't need to become someone else to lead. You just need to become steady.